Hello, everybody. It's Jemma Smith here from the Education Hotel. I'm just going live on the 11 plus journey. So if you are listening, if you are seeing me, if you can hear me, give this post a like, and then I will know that you are here. If you are also watching, drop us a comment in the comments tab. Say hi, so that I know that people are seeing me. Otherwise, I don't know who I'm talking to. So do pop on and say hi. If you're watching this and you're watching it on replay, then give us a hashtag replay, and that way we can come back and I can answer any other questions that you've got. But ultimately, please do feel free to drop some comments in there. I know that Summer is busy on looking through the comments as well, and we will help as much as we can. If I can't answer your comment today on our live, then I will definitely get to it and answer by typing away and give you a reply. So if you've got any really specific stuff, do drop it in the comments, and I'll try and do my best. Again, if you are watching it on replay, give us a hashtag replay. Yeah, I think we are probably ready to start. So hopefully all of you that are joining us, this is hello, and hopefully you're joining us because you are not sure what to do. You want to know what to do this summer. So you might be coming up to summer and you might be a year 5 parent, you might be a year 4 parent, you might even be a parent that's just thinking in advance, and that's fine. We welcome you all. So hello and welcome to the 11 plus journey. My name is Jemma Smith. I am one of the admins here. I am an education expert. I run a tuition agency, an education consultancy, and I speak for I work with some magazines as an education expert, published in the ones that you can see below. I am myself an Oxford grad, but actually I did the 11 plus myself. So that is one of the personal reasons why I love working with 11 plus students. I remember what it was like. I remember the summer before I did my 11 plus, and it was tough. It was tough. It was the first time I'd ever come across that kind of working, and lots of people will know because I've spoken about it before. It was me and my mother, and we clashed a lot over that time. So I'm talking at this from a personal perspective. But also, I've been a tutor for about 9 years, and I have taken students through 11 plus, through 13 plus, and to top kind of schools all throughout the UK, scholarships, etc. So I'm coming at this from a tutor's angle as well. And I kind of intensively work with tweens and teens. So I've had students who I've taken from just making a decision to do an 11 plus or 13 plus at the start of summer and taking it in the September, to students who I've been working with from pretty much year 3, year 4. So all the way across. What I will say is about this talk today, it's kind of taken from my experience, but at the same time, it's there is no one size fits all. So I know that there's a lot of questions that go around at this point about test papers, about mocks, and about different things. There is no one size fits all. So if you're listening to me and you're thinking, she sounds like, it's too easy, or it sounds like it's too much on my child, then it probably is, because every 11 plus journey is individual. So really listen to what I say, but at the same time, your child is your child. So if you think this isn't going to work, then this is not the only way. What I am saying now is not the only way to get your child to a top school, to get your child to a grammar school. Really, it's about what works for you and what works for them. And at this point, what I say to parents is what works for your team. You and your child you are a team, and a tutor, if they're working with you, part of the team as well. So they need to be team decisions that you're making over summer to really help that child to thrive. So if you think of it like an athlete has their coach, they've got that team behind them, they know that they are doing everything they possibly can in order to improve their performance. And the same thing is for tutors and is for parents. So we are working as a team to push them over the edge, not literally, to push them over the finish line, and to really get them to where they want to go. So without any further ado, I'll crack on. What I've done is essentially I've just taken the questions that people have come up with on the group and put them into categories. So typically around this time, maybe a little bit later, but kind of around this time, we start to get questions about summer. Things like test papers. We get questions of how many test papers should they be doing a week? Is X amount of test papers the right number of test papers? How should I be doing these test papers? What should I be doing with them? Should they be sitting them under exam conditions? How do you learn from those test papers? So all of those types of questions. It's worth saying that I'm doing it now as opposed to when we're in summer holidays, so that as parents, you can take the information, you can go back, you can process it, and you can come up with a plan of action for your child. And you can sit down and discuss that with them and make those decisions. So it's why it's a little bit early. But test papers, ultimately, one of the biggest questions that we get asked. What is the use of test papers? I think is probably the thing that I'll start with. And practice papers, I'm talking here, not full mocks, but practice papers like the packs that they sell, the assessment papers done by different publishers. And I suppose that the important thing that we will always say is that it's worth noting that there are no official, except for the familiarization test, there are no official passed papers for 11 plus. There are for some of the independents, but not for the grammars. And what you are doing is when you purchase these papers, you are purchasing somebody like myself's approximation. So what we do is usually pretty good guesstimate. We take all of the questions that we've seen, that we've had students tell us about, that we've helped maybe to write previously. I know Peter Francis does quite a lot of work specifically with exam boards, and we then tweak them, make them into papers, give them out. So when you are purchasing a practice paper, that is the kind of reasoning behind it. So they're usually pretty good. They're not past papers, but they're pretty good at approximations. The point behind them, for me anyway, is to identify mistakes and to identify areas of focus. And that might be either in syllabus or it might be in exam taking. So say I've got a student who has taken a paper and they've got mid-70s. So they're doing okay. I typically focus on more of the selective schools. So they've still, for me, they need to be achieving slightly higher. The first thing that I'm doing is I'm going through that paper with a really fine tooth comb. And I'm looking at, did they get runs of questions wrong? So if, for example, question 10, 11, 12, and 13 was wrong, then I'm looking at, well, were they put off by question 10? So was it that they spent ages on question 10 and then they rushed the others? Or that they lost confidence in question 10 and that put the others off? Then I might look at, well, is 10, 11, 12, 13, are they parts of a multi-part question? In which case they didn't understand the question. Or is it that 10, 11, 12, 13, is it that they're all around the same subject area? So if they are around the same subject area, I know that's where you've got to focus. If the question 10 is particularly tricky, it means they put them off for 11, 12, and 13. That's an exam technique. So test papers can be used for both. If I'm going through a paper and the end part's wrong, they rushed it, or they didn't have enough time to finish, so they just wrote down some random random letters, which is exactly what they should be doing, definitely, because they need to answer multiple choice. But I also then need to work on speeding up. So if you are going through test papers, and some of you may well be working with test papers now, but as you start to go into summer, you might be looking at them, then really do use them for everything. So use them to see where your child is having problems with syllabus material. Use them so that you can see exam technique. Use them so that you can drill down and see typically what happens when they take an exam. And it is worth noting that is quite a long process to go through a paper. Like when I'm going through papers for my students, I will take probably as long to go through the paper as it is that they took doing it. And that's because I'm trying to get as much detail as I can. Because if I've got a child in front of me who, when I've been doing practice questions with them, and I know lots of you do the 10-minute tests from CGP or the Bond books, and maybe they're doing really well with those, but then they come and do a test and they get 70%. I need to know what's happening between those. And the way that I'm going to do that is by really trying to spot those mistakes and why they're happening. Not just to say to a child, oh, look, you made a mistake, but to look at how you can do it again. So if they took too long, is there a quicker way? Is there something where they've been doing it a long way round? Actually, there's a quicker way to do it. And maybe it's that they've kind of dipped in the middle. Well, do they get tired? Do they need to take 1 minute of a break, look up at the ceiling, kind of relax themselves, and then get back into it? Is it that they're rushing? That's the type of things I'm trying to get out of test papers. The second biggest question that we get about test papers around this time is how many? And it's really dependent on your child, and it's really dependent on where they want to go. But if you can think of it as typically what I will do is I will do around one paper, full paper, so all 4 areas a week. And over summer, I will also increase the difficulty until the last couple of weeks of August, where I'm really building on confidence. And the reason that I choose to do 1 a week, and as I said, it's completely different for each child, but on average for me, is I like to get that feedback, target the areas, and then see where they are. And don't go over 1 because I find that that's a little bit too much. I stick to 1 and I look at exactly why. We have to have a reason for doing it. So to pick out the areas, to work on the areas. By the time they're getting around an 80 to 85%, I increase the difficulty. So that might mean changing the pack. If you've got yourself a pack of GL style questions from one provider, that might mean getting a different pack from a different provider. Because if they're doing consistently that they're getting 85, 90%, then we probably need to change style. And I need to check, are they doing as well in other styles, other providers? Because people, although when you write the papers, we all write them around the same, the styling is slightly different, and by using a variety, it can often help. So in terms of the number, I tend to do 1 a week. That's across all 4 areas. That's not to say I don't do practice questions in between, but those practice questions are based off of what the child didn't get right in the test paper. So that test paper is taken under exam conditions. The test paper is there to show me the gaps. And I don't focus on the mark with a child. Again, looking at confidence. Instead, I will focus very much on where we need to improve. But I might keep a tag of the marks just so that I can see myself, or you as parents can see yourselves, whether you're going up or whether you're plateauing or going down. And again, worth saying, in summer, often there will be a dip, and that dip's quite natural. They've left school, they've relaxed, they've taking their eye off the ball. It might also be that they've lost motivation. It could be that it could be a whole number of reasons, but you need to know if they started to dip, and therefore kind of adapt what you're doing. But the other thing that's worth being aware of is how much kind of how much you communicate with your child. So if they know the reasons behind those tests, so do they know why they're doing them? Do they know what's important to be aware of when they're done with those tests? Do they know why you're going over them? Do they know what they should be focusing on? So whilst tests are important, I think whilst practice is important, it's useful to know exactly why you are doing them. I prefer a variety as opposed to just sticking to one publisher, and I like to try and get more difficult. Now, I did say at the end of August, start of September, I drop, and the reason that I do that is, and it's not for everyone as well, but for kind of a standard student, I will drop the difficulty. What I will do is I'll keep the papers from the start of summer to the end of summer. I will then pull all the questions that they have struggled with, stick them across a couple of papers, along with some other questions, and re-give them. And my students will take those, and they might not score as highly because they are all the questions that they didn't get right. But what I will do is I'll use those papers to be able to show them how far they've come. The other thing is, typically just before the exams, I'll make them easier so that it improves confidence. And that is something that, again, as I said, not shared by everyone. Many people don't do that. But for me, confidence is one of the things that really raises a grade. So if my student goes in feeling like they really can do it, they're more likely to be able to score highly. If they go in thinking, oh, I didn't score very well on the last practice paper that I did, that's going to impact their performance. Okay, the second most popular thing that you guys voted for on our poll was how to look at vocabulary, comprehension, and creative writing over summer. So we had a poll in the 11 Plus Journey. Loads of you voted, which was amazing to see, and this was the second most popular. So vocabulary. I know that there's lots that we've talked about on the 11 Plus Journey before. I do the wow words that come across every Monday. We've got quite a lot of resources that sit, but if you are reaching summer, and maybe you're reaching summer as a year 4, or you're reaching summer as a year 5 parent, and you think the vocabulary is not amazing, and maybe you're going for a grammar school for which verbal reasoning is pretty important. You think you might need to improve or really focus on that vocabulary. There are so many fun things that you can do. I would put, when I look at kind of how to work over summer, I do 2 versions of work. The first is book work and practice-based questions and the kind of typical stuff. The other is more game-based. And in fact, I've got in front of me, yeah, there we are. So kind of game versions in terms of, that's actually a times table version, but I had the word versions as well. And vocab is something that can be gamed. So that means you can play it as a family. You can you can start to play things online. You can make it quite fun, but you can also track progress. So vocab, there is no one list for VR. They can take any word, but there are some really great approximations. So lots of us tutors have lists that we like to use, that we've got, again, through kind of years of working with students and going through the books and going through the verbal reasoning and really looking. And there's loads of things that you can do. You can put them in groups. So for example, you can have a hat day. I love hat day, it's great. What I do with my students is I bring in loads of hats and we start to learn the names of them. And is a fairly typical VR question where they will give you the odd one out ones and they'll give you, say, 4 hats, and one of them might not be a hat, it might be a bird. So do consider them like categories. So categories can be a great way to theme. So you can play kind of categories by getting your child to go and find different things. So ask them to go and find different types of pens. You can do it online as well. Or you can get them to draw it, do it as a Pictionary version. So that's one way, kind of put it in categories. You can do a good old flashcards. Try and make it fun. So maybe they have to ask you one and you have to put it in a sentence and define it. Then you get to ask them one. So again, a little bit more fun. Simple games like Scrabble, Hangman, word searches. Those can also be used to increase vocab knowledge. One of the things that I know Sheena's a really big fan of is the whole kind of 5 a day. So where you choose 5 words and you kind of agree to use them. You use them a lot throughout the day. When I do it with students, I will I play a game where we have to drop it into conversation. It's always quite fun over summer because you can see them trying to drop it into conversation. So maybe you're going out for the day, but you want to do a little tiny bit of 11 plus, maybe play that game on the way there. So they go and see their grandparents, but they have to drop in dilapidated and they have to drop in pretentious and maybe another word. And that can be quite fun to see how they use it. So again, you're looking at how to use vocab. So with vocab, I'd make it fun because it's a never-ending task, but it is something that can be got quite interesting. You can write creative writing, give them 5 words or 10 words and set a timer, and you both have to write something, or them and a sibling has to write something, and maybe make your own book over summer. Just because it's 11 plus does not mean it has to be all book work. It has to be all revision guides and workbooks. There can be some fun to it. Comprehension. If you are a year 5 parent, you are probably looking at inference. It's typically one of the more tricky areas. So do consider the kind of inference questions. With inference, one of the things that again I like to do is to pick a book that they're reading, or indeed a TV show that they're watching. Again, this is kind of a lighter exercise, and ask them why the character is doing things. Why have they decided to go over there? What are they trying to hide? Why are they going into that shop as opposed to this one? And that starts to get them thinking about inference. And then when they're doing it in comprehension, remind them of the conversations that you've had. Comprehension can be very tiring. So running comprehensions again and again and again isn't necessarily the best way to improve a comprehension skill. Doing work around texts often is, and the work around text that I might do would be printing off a text that they know, and cutting it up into lots of pieces, getting them to order it, or getting them to summarize it, getting them to write the questions. So I give them a comprehension piece and say, well, can you write the questions? Give me, and maybe put them in categories. So give me 3 defined questions, so where they have to give the definition of a word. Maybe a couple of straightforward answer questions, a couple of inference questions, and you can start to see, okay, well, what are they really picking out when they're the examiner? They can also give that to you, and you have to work it out. Of course, there is the standard comprehensions that exist in in kind of vocab workbooks. Again, great to use. 10-minute tests also useful. I see someone saying there we are. Really, any kind of news from the newspaper. Can also be really useful for comprehension and summary skills. So do consider comprehension. As we get to summer, we start to get more intensive. We're looking at 11 plus being the work they're doing. Do consider how we can make them a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting, and just ultimately intersperse that practice, that really quite dry practice, with something that's a little bit more interesting and fun. And then creative writing. Again, one of the best things that I enjoy doing with my students, and anyone who's had an assessment with me will know the same thing. I give them an object, and I ask them to describe the object, and I ask them to write a paragraph sometimes on that object as though I can't see it. So they might have to describe a flower. They might have to describe a cloud in the sky. And that description is something that then can be used or can be thought of when you're doing creative writing. So I like to try to use those. I like to do them on walks as well. So if you're out with your child, and again, it's kind of as a bit more of a fun, as opposed to sit down and do a creative writing, you might ask them to pick something and to describe it to you in such a way that maybe it's got a personification, or maybe it's got some simile in it, or maybe it's got some really amazing vocabulary that you guys have studied that week. And they have to describe, it's azure blue and it has wisps like cotton wool going through it, or there's it's spiky, and when you walk on it, it leaves shadows behind, or something, and you have to guess what they're describing. So again, that kind of more fun creative writing, and it's a real balance. So if you think about summer, and you think about summer compared to school, in school they're used to break times, they're used to fun activities in school. They don't sit down and do a whole hour's worth of workbook. And now often during summer, we are asking our children to do that. So do try breaking it up with some slightly more fun stuff. But also remember that there is that practice. So if your child has done a test paper, do them at the weekend. You can do them whenever you like. But if they've done one at the weekend, maybe the comprehension wasn't great. Go over that test paper with them, say on a Monday, and you pick out some areas that they've struggled with. Maybe it's with the vocabulary. The vocabulary was really hard. It was maybe a non-fiction piece, and they struggled with a lot of the vocab. So you then would agree with them, and that's something that I like to do. I like to sit down with my students and say, this is what we're targeting this week, and this is how we're going to start to plan it out. And I write out a timetable with them, and I ask them to choose certain bits of it. So I'll say, okay, the thing that we're targeting is vocab, and we are going to do free rice, really great online vocab kind of online game. We are going to do flashcards. And then I've got between this and this, and then they get a bit of choice. So I allow them to kind of have a little bit of a choice, and then at the end, maybe we're going to do a creative writing, and you're going to use those words in it. And I might do some practice questions as well throughout that week, and then I will have a look again when they do that practice paper at the end of the week and see how much improvement they've made. So that's interspersing a lot of fun activities with some bookwork, with that practice, and then ending it up with a practice paper. Many people on the poll, I think this was, were asking about short breaks versus long holidays. I am a short breaks person, and the reason for that is that I find when my students take long holidays, they switch off, and it often takes a week, even 2 weeks, to get back to the work. So for me, if you are taking a short break, so say you're going Friday to Monday somewhere, that's much easier than taking a 14-day holiday. And also being aware of when you take those holidays. I know it's sunny outside, and I know there are more countries on the green list. And also, your child might not be the child that's taking 11 plus might not be the only child. You might have other children, and they really want a break as well. So whilst I wouldn't say don't go on holiday, my tutor did, but I would never say don't go on holiday. I'd say keep it short. And I also wouldn't probably take work on holiday, because that just more kind of in morale, in terms of confidence, it's like saying to you're going on holiday, but you have to do your office work. It's not ideal. So again, it would be for me about sitting down and talking with my student. Okay, we've got 3 days. But maybe keep those games in there. So play Scrabble in the evening, play Pictionary, play some word games in the car. But anything that's kind of paper-based, I wouldn't take with. And then I would have a discussion about how actually, on the days going up to that break and the days coming back from that break, we might have to work a little bit more. But that's okay, because you're doing it as a team, and we're doing it so that we can have a fun time whilst you're away. If you take work with you over a holiday, it can make it seem like it's not a holiday. It's just doing work in another place, which is a really great technique for breaking up work. So if you're at home, they're really not feeling it, do go out into the garden and kind of take advantage, but it isn't a holiday. So that's why I'd recommend going on short breaks, and maybe several of them, as opposed to a long holiday. Now, it's not possible for everybody, and that's fine. And everybody has a different way of doing summer. But that would be my recommendation. That is my preference. The other thing to note is that it can be motivation can be a struggle over summer, because if you kind of imagine your child looking out the window, they're stuck inside doing workbooks, feels like forever. Their friends are outside doing fun things, or they are online doing fun things, and your child can often feel like they're having to do the 11 plus. So at the start, what I like to do would be to sit down with them to plan out some days where absolutely no matter what, doesn't matter how they do, doesn't matter what happens, those are the days that you are taking off. So they know that those are ring fenced. You're not going to move them. Those are the days they're taking off. That means that they are aware when everything is happening. And I know that my team get kind of are going to get annoyed at me, but in terms of planning, there is something on the horizon that hopefully, if you're a year 4 parent watching this, should help with that. And in terms of planning, being really upfront and being very organised in it, for me is the better way. A bit of flexibility in there. So not deciding exactly what you're doing every hour of the day, but knowing that if your child knows that 1st of August is going to be off because you are going to the beach that day, that's it. Then they know that is ring fenced. Also sitting down and making sure there's motivation. So if you have toured the school, going back to those conversations, if you haven't watched online tours, maybe now is the time to take a look at the YouTube videos. Now is the time to discuss any kind of extrinsic motivation. I know that some parents introduce a meal maybe after the 11 plus, or a kind of reward. Then that would be something maybe to sit down and to think about. So there's always that motivation. So you can always remind them of why they're doing it. For me, I did my 11 plus and I went to Chelmsford Grammar, and I wanted to go there because it had a swimming pool. That was the reason, really. And every time my motivation started to wane, my mum reminded me that I get to go to a school with a swimming pool, and it really helped. It helped me to focus, to work out where I was going and why I was doing something. So motivation, making sure that plan is really nice and structured, and making sure your child's aware of when it's going to have, when there's going to be days off. So when is that plan not going to be followed? Reading. This, I think, was the fourth in our poll. I am maybe going to maybe going to anger some of our English specialists, because I think over summer, I don't think it will actually, I think over summer you should read what you like, because reading should be fun. And yes, there's reading for 11 plus, but ultimately there's reading. And if your child enjoys reading for fun. If your child really struggles to read and really pushes back, and I know that there are some, then joint reading and pick a book that's kind of ideal. I know that the libraries run kind of summer reading programs, always useful. But if you are thinking, okay, now is the time for a classic, I maybe wouldn't go for that for summer, because there's a lot going on in summer. Unless you are building it into your work, then I wouldn't be looking at really classic reading. I would personally be looking at more fun books. If you are looking for vocab, though, maybe looking at short classic stories. Really depends why you're wanting to push reading. If you're wanting to push it because your child really struggles with vocab, then it might be useful to read together. Read something like a chapter of Sheena's Cadwallader Quests. Can be really useful for picking out the vocab. If your child is a good reader, they enjoy reading, let them read what they want over summer, because that means that they get some of that as a downtime, and yet you are also slyly getting in some vocabulary. And do sit with them and ask them, oh, why did the character decide to do that? Tell me what you're reading. Why do you think they're like this? And ask them questions about it, because again, it's a way of getting some of that work in without it seeming so hard. If your child is a reluctant reader, that's when I would really kind of be pushing something that is quite vocab dense, because typically if they're a reluctant reader, they'll be struggling maybe a little bit more with that vocab. So that's why I'd be picking maybe a more vocab heavy. A classic can be useful. Often comprehension skills, comprehension papers do come from classics, and they can be quite useful. But how much your child will remember that would be useful for the comprehension is very little. So if they've done it in the summer and then they saw it in a comprehension, will they remember every single last bit of it? No. Will they be familiar with it and it might help with their confidence? Yes. But will that kind of very small percentage of having seen the text, having read the text, is that going to give them as much as an edge as knowing 50, 60 more words for vocabulary? In my opinion, no. In my opinion, that's why I'd go for a very vocab rich, or if they're a great reader, let them read what they want and focus elsewhere. Again, it really depends, and I'm sure there will be some English specialists who will say, no, absolutely, do the classics over summer, and good, great books. But I think for me, if I have a child who's a great reader, they're going to read what they want. If I have a child who's a really reluctant reader, I'd be working on the vocab with something that's a little bit more structured. And if your tutor is following quite a structured program and that includes the classics, then that would be quite a structured thing. I can't go anywhere near summer without talking about mental health and without talking about stress, because your child, if you are a year 5 parent watching this, they're entering year 6. They're becoming independent, and they are learning how to look after their mental health and their physical health. And it's quite a influenceable, probably not a word. It's quite a time where you can show them how to look after their mental health and how to look after themselves when they're stressed. And this is one of the few points they would have hit this amount of stress. And 11 plus is a stressful time for many people, for parents, for children. Soon they're going to be year 8, and they are going to be really independent, and they're going to be thinking about eventually GCSEs in year 10, year 11. And at that point, they will be looking after their own mental health. Obviously, you'll be there guiding, but not in quite such a way as you are now. And so now is a really great time to show them how to deal with stress. One of the great ways that they can do so is kind of journaling, is being able to write down what, again, is something that my team's kind of going, no, don't say things. But again, the kind of journaling might be something that's coming out, I suppose, slightly a little bit later on. Again, year 4 parents, hopefully we'll have something to help with that quite soon. But if you're dealing with it now and your child is kind of looking for something to do, again, something like a kind of a colouring book. We all got into that craze, writing, journaling, writing down poetry, writing a diary, making sure that they have enough activity, making sure that they eat well. All of those things are the things that you, as parents, that you are teaching your child, so that when they get to GCSEs or when they get to another stressful point in their lives, they know how to look after themselves. So I suppose that the meaningful takeaway with that is modeling how you can look after your mental health, so that your child, when they come against another point of stress, they know exactly what to do and they know how to help themselves. Congratulations if you've been watching this and you are year 4 parents. This is the bit for you. If you're looking to plan ahead, like, what do I do? I'm entering year 4, I'm entering year 5. What do I need to do over summer? Now is a great time for you guys to take stock and look at how far your child has come and look at where you still need to go. And this planning piece, again, is something that, again, I won't say masses on, but we're working on. This kind of idea of planning ahead and really knowing where you're going. So for my students, I like at the end of year 4 for them to have done, around 3/4 of the syllabus. Again, I focus on highly selective schools, so I like them to be finished by December of year 5. That is very early compared to a lot of people won't finish till kind of Easter. What I do is I go through until December, and then we look at any topics where we've seen struggle and we need to go back to, again, until Easter, and then we start looking at papers and kind of practice papers. But if you're a parent who is sitting here, your child is at the end of year 3 or end of year 4, and you're thinking, what do I do? Plan ahead, see where you are in terms of the syllabus. Balance. There is no point going full pelt at it this summer, because they've got another summer. And what you're going to do is they're going to really, really resent working, and you're going to end up with a real really hard time. Some children love it. They really enjoy doing 11 plus work. Very few, but some of them really do. And what I like to do with those that are quite competitive, we'll do something like math challenge, or we'll do poetry writing. We will do something that's related, but not 11 plus prep, not sitting down with workbooks, because they don't need to at this point. It's not something I particularly encourage at this point. They've got year 5, right? It might be that you are looking ahead and you're thinking, actually, year 5 is going to be very busy. My child is going to do a competitive sport, or we are going to have to make a trip abroad to see family for quite a long while. Then I might start putting some work into maybe the end of summer, but nowhere near as intensive as the year 5 kind of preparation. The idea really is that it is a hill, it's an incline. You're working up, you're working up, you're working up. You kind of take the exam. If you've done a load of work in summer and then you drop back down, that child is going to be exhausted, and they're going to have increased, but they will really struggle when they're going back up that hill again. So instead of kind of making it two big hills, just try and keep on that straight incline. Schedule or ad hoc. I think probably covered that one by now. I'm very much a schedule person, but that said, there needs to be a bit of flexibility, because once you take those papers, those mocks, whatever it is that you're looking to do, then you need to be able to be flexible about what you're doing, how you're improving, how you are going to work on improving. So yes, scheduled, ideally agreed with your child. Try and get some buy-in. So whether that is what they do on the afternoons off, or what books they're reading, anything that you can get that gets their buy-in, that it's you as a team. So yes, you may well be setting the schedule, but if they can choose an activity, they can choose between two things that you're thinking, that again gets a little bit of agreement, a little bit of motivation, and less, because there will be some refusal. I remember looking out the window and just being like, I don't want to do these spellings. And I actually went down, and instead of I was doing look, cover, write, check, and instead of doing any of that, I just wrote every single letter, A, P, 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 P. And I remember it really clearly, because I was bored, and I really I felt like I'd had no say in what I was doing. So that's why I'd always say, try and get that buy-in, try and be as inclusive, but also what needs to be done as a parent. So timetables to follow, it really depends on where you're aiming, what your child is scoring, where your child is at that specific moment. I typically do 2 to 3 hours when I work with students, and 2 because it fits into nice 30-minute blocks, 3 because it gets a bit of breaks in it, and that would be workbook style material. And then we might do some kind of fun stuff with vocab. We don't do it every day. We typically do it maybe 4 days. We'll do a practice paper as well. So that would be an average, but it really depends on the child, where they're aiming for and where they're starting. I work with students who at the start of summer decide that they want to do 11 plus, and that's intensive. I also deal with students who've been doing this since year 3, year 4. They're scoring really high, and what we have to do over summer is kind of keep them going and keep them making ever so slight increases, so that by the time you get to the exams, that they are ready. So it's something that really depends on the child, depends on the parent, depends on, are you taking holiday, depends on the school. But ultimately it's an individual choice. Summer courses, and I'm just going to flick forward. Yes, summer courses and mock exams. the last point. Obviously, I kind of come on here to offer advice, but it is also worth saying that kind of being upfront, my company runs a summer course. So we are running a week summer course per subject over in August, which focuses on math, English, verbal, non-verbal, creative writing, and we do 2 hours a day. In terms of kind of timetable, we actually do from 9 till 11, and we work with students to help improve confidence and do those tricky topics. Aside that, because I haven't really come on here to kind of push a course, but summer courses can be very useful. They can help students provided that you know why you're taking them and that your child knows why. If you are sitting there, you're a year 5 parent and you're thinking, I could just do with them doing something every day. There are summer courses that do that. If you are thinking, I really need them to do it with other people in a classroom, there are summer courses for that. If you think, I just want to target the really tricky topics, and there are summer courses for that. But do make sure that you and your child know why you're doing it. So it might be that you say, actually, English could really do with a bit of work. So that's the bit I'm going to focus on. And we're going to look at a summer course for that, but everything else we're going to do at home, or we're going to do with a tutor. So really do consider why you are taking them and whether they work with your own personal circumstances, your own personal timetable, what you need to do. Same thing for mocks. Again, mocks have many different formats, just like summer courses. The summer courses that we are doing are online. They're 9 till 11 in the morning, and they are personalised. But there are others out there that run the whole of July and August, and that run through a kind of set list of topics. It really is different. There's different options, and the same thing for mocks. So mocks, there are some that will give you computerized mocks. There will be some that will give you in person. There are some where you get all the questions back. There are some where you just get the questions back that your child has not scored on. Consider why you're doing them, and consider the way that you will discuss them when they get home. So say you're putting your child in for a mock, and the reason that you're doing it is you would like your child to be used to the idea of going into a room, taking that mock exam, and being in that environment and being with other students. Then if the results come back and they're not great, you might choose to keep those scores to yourself and to work on the areas that have come back as needing work. You might take that as, okay, that my child was probably a bit confused and shocked, and maybe they don't deal so well under pressure. Maybe I need to do another one of those just so that they get used to it. Or if they do really well, share it with them, because that's only going to improve their confidence. But make sure you know why you're doing a mock. I wouldn't just do them. Same thing with summer courses. I wouldn't just do them because they're there. There are so many options now that you can make the right choice for your child. And that choice might not be the same as their friend in school. That might not be the same that your cousin used 2 years ago. It's what works for your child. So it might be that for your child, 3 mocks is ideal. It might be that 1 mock is ideal. It might be 2 mocks are ideal. It might be that you are happy to do them online, that you want to do a postal one. There's loads of different options out there. Ultimately, choose the right version for you, but also consider why you're doing them. So if you are saying, I would like to do mocks, firstly, always to see where they need to improve, but because my child is a little bit anxious about going and doing the 11 plus, and then you do one and you think, oh, maybe another one would be useful. Don't go booking up 8, because it's not going to achieve what you need to achieve. If there's a reason that they are scoring low, you need to find out that reason. Booking more mocks isn't going to necessarily make it better. It's about working. It's about working out where their areas of focus need to be. So, is it that they panicked in the exam? In which case, talk to them. Go through a visualization about what's going to happen as they go into the exam, what's expected, what's it like. Really have that time to discuss. Is it that they're not finishing? And you can see that from the mocks. Then at home you need to really practice putting time pressure in. So really take those mocks and use them as opposed to just getting grades out of them. So that would be my kind of thought on summer courses and on mocks. At the moment, the Education Hotel runs summer courses. We run for year 5. We run 1 week online. We do not run mocks, but there are loads and loads of people in the 11 Plus journey who do run mocks. And as I said, there's loads of summer course providers as well. Everyone's slightly different. Everyone runs it in a slightly different way. Okay, right. We are coming up to an hour. So obviously, I have to say thanks ever so much to Summer, who lets me come on and witter all the time for 11 Plus and the 11 Plus journey. And thank you guys for whoever's been watching today. So if you've been watching us live, thanks very much. If you are watching us on replay, add #replay. As I said, if you've got any more questions, put them on 11 Plus journey so that all of us can see them, because if you've got the question, someone else will have the same question. If you are needing to speak to the Education Hotel, as I said, we can book a free 15-minute call. Our link is there. But if you have a kind of a general question, then please do pop it on 11 Plus journey. There's a number of experts who are willing to give up our time, and our kind of advice will probably be useful to you, but might also be useful to some other parents. As I said, I always monitor the comments. So if you've got any questions, I know that there is one that I need to get back to. I will get back to you in the comments, and then that's it, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this. I am going to go and eat my dinner. All right then. Bye bye.